price, a good. So that is why. So for instance, in the Nigerian economy, we'll have, like you and I, when we go out to shop, we are the ones who bear the VAT. We are the ones who pay the VAT, and the VAT is charged at 7.5% of what you buy. It's on top of the cost of what you buy. And this is a very, very quick and direct way for governments all over the world. Like I said, 170 countries in the world have adopted the value-added tax as a form of indirect tax in order to raise revenue or generate revenue in order to fund government projects and infrastructure development. So there are almost everything is vatable except anything that is listed on the exempt schedule. There is a list of items that are exempt from VAT. So those ones, when you transact in them, you are not supposed to pay a VAT on them. But everything else that is not on that list is vatable. So that is what VAT is. It's a consumption tax or a form of sales tax. So every time you purchase a service or you buy a good, you attract the VAT, and it's borne by the last person who actually consumes the service. So there's a sort of like a mechanism, because it's a chain. Because what you go to the shop to buy was probably bought from somewhere and then is being resold to you as a final consumer. So the person who bought it also paid a VAT on it, but that VAT is now transferred down the chain to the final consumer. It's called an input-output mechanism of VAT that balances out and makes sure that nobody pays the VAT twice. Do you understand? So nobody is charged the VAT or double taxed except the final consumer. So if you buy your as let's say a retailer, a supermarket, let me give an example that everyone can relate to it. The supermarket, they source their goods that they sell from somewhere, the wholesaler, right? So when they buy from the wholesaler or importer of those goods, they would have paid the VAT. In fact, the importer would have paid the VAT at the ports. Okay, so that's when he now sells those goods to the wholesaler within the country. That wholesaler also pays the VAT. He transfers that VAT by way of input, by netting off the VAT he paid to customs to the VAT he is now charging the wholesaler. So there's a net off, and that's the net that the wholesaler pays to the FIRS. So when the wholesaler pays to the FIRS his net, but he also sells to the retailer, who is the supermarket, and you and I are the final consumer of the goods. So that VAT is transferred until it is borne by us who consume the service, the final service, or buy the good, for consumption. So I don't know if that explains it for you. I know it can be a bit complicated when you talk about the input-output of VAT, but just look at it this way. VAT is paid at every stage of the economic activity. But the final that is paid by you and I, the consumer. Because every time someone on the chain is not a final consumer and is transferring that good to another person, do you understand? They charge an input. So they deduct the VAT they paid before remitting. Okay? So that means that keeps happening until the final consumer buys the goods, and that final consumer, you have no way of recovering your VAT. That's the person that pays the tax to the government. Okay.
Okay, those selling in open markets, those also pay tax to FIRS.
We mean like in the
shop owners,
okay.
Traders in the market.
Yes. What the government has done in order to lessen the tax burden on the final consumer, one of the things that the government has done is to put a threshold. So because of that threshold, we have now a 25 million naira threshold. So what that means is that if you're selling goods and services, and in a year your threshold turnover is not up to 25 million, you are actually exempt from charging the tax and remitting it. Do you understand? So a small shop owner who is doing his business, maybe an off license or a shop in the market, if your turnover is not up to 25 million, you are not expected to be burdened by charging the VAT, because what happens is that everybody who sells goods and services is an agent of government to collect the tax, because you are selling to someone. You are selling to a consumer. You are offering a service to a consumer of the service. So you become automatically a registered taxpayer or agent of government. And that's the point where the taxes are supposed to be collected. The tax is supposed to be collected. So, but if you are turning over less than 25 million, the government says you don't have to charge the tax, you don't have to remit it. So people buying from you are exempted from paying that VAT in a way, even though the goods they're buying are vatable. But because they're buying from you, a consumer, a seller or producer or service provider that is not turning over enough, in order to help businesses for ease of doing businesses and to lessen the burden on the final consumer, they said you don't have to, charge the tax.
What are the percentage pay for this tax? Companies, NGOs, and society?
Okay, so we have two rates of VAT, and I say two because one is the standard rate, which is 7.5%. 7.5% is to be paid by is the VAT standard rate. Then we have a zero rate of VAT. Usually that is charged to maybe humanitarian donor organizations like NGOs, churches, other religious bodies. Genesis, that's at the zero rate. So it means that what they are transacting in, it's not the organization. Another thing I just want to clarify is that the VAT does not exempt the law does not exempt companies like NGOs from the tax. It only exempts the kind of transaction you are doing. Okay, so for NGOs, for instance, if they are doing a transaction that is purely for humanitarian purpose, or they're buying or enjoying a service or a goods, purchasing goods that are purely for humanitarian, non-profit, then they don't pay a VAT. But if they engage in any, as an NGO, if you engage in any contract or business activity, economic activity that is not directly for humanitarian purpose, you are supposed to pay the VAT. So this is a little misconception that is out there. NGOs think that there is a blanket exemption on them because they are NGO. Even churches, they tend to believe that they are not supposed to even pay the tax at all, but that's not the case. The law exempts transactions, not organizations. So as an NGO, if your activities are purely humanitarian, non-profit activities, then of course you are exempt from paying the tax. But the tax is actually not an exemption. It's what is called a zero rate. Okay, so a zero rate means that you do not pay, you pay 0% on the tax, but the input, that is, if you bought goods and services where you paid VAT, okay, you can claim the money. That's the difference between exempt and zero rate. Do you want me to explain that again? Yes, okay, fine. So let me give an example. Exempt, it means that whoever buys that goods, baby products, baby food is an example of an exempt product. Wherever baby food is sold, whether it's in the shop, whether it's in the market, wherever, or by whoever, it is exempt. Okay? Even an NGO sells baby food, it is exempt from VAT. Okay, but zero rated means that, so when a good is exempt, that means that you cannot claim any input on it. That's the main difference. Because as a seller of baby food, you bought from a wholesaler, you didn't pay any VAT. You are not supposed to pay because it's baby food. You now put it in a supermarket and resell it to people. Because it's baby food, you are not supposed to charge the people buying, the final consumer, any VAT on it, okay? But when it is zero rated, so I'll give the example of a humanitarian organization or an NGO. They embark on a construction project. Say maybe they're building a school, a classroom block, okay, for free for a community. So that's a humanitarian project, right? But you know that they will go and buy construction materials, they will hire labor, they will hire all kinds of things in order to make that construction possible. Where they're buying, because as an organization, they are doing this for humanitarian, they are exempt. Do you understand? Sorry, they are zero rated, their activities are zero rated, which allows them any VAT they paid when they went to go and buy building materials, construction materials for that project, they can claim it back as a refund. I don't know if that, how do they claim it back? Okay, so they will keep all their records. They will keep all their records, and you know they are expected to file a return every month to the tax office, right? So while filing your return, you can state there, this is the VAT you incurred. But because as a humanitarian organization, I'm zero rated, my activities are zero rated, I incurred VAT when buying these products. So you state it on your return there. Then if there's any VAT that you are supposed to pay, you state it there. If it's zero, that means that the VAT that you paid is a credit to you. So you can now ask for that refund either in cash, or you can ask for the money to be put on your account and used to offset future, maybe if you engage in any activity at any other time that is vatable, they would now just deduct it from there. I don't know if this is clear. So that's the main difference between zero rated and exempt. Exempt, no input to claim because there's no VAT at any stage, okay? But for zero rated, you may buy from somewhere and be asked to pay VAT. But because you are, as an organization, you are zero rated, you can now indicate that in your returns filing, and if it's a credit to you, then ask for a refund on your input that you paid. Yes.
Through which is VAT paid?
Sorry?
Through which is VAT paid?
Okay. There are two ways, two aspects of payment. Like I explained, the VAT paid by you, the consumer, you and I, when we go to the shop, or when we go to a legal firm and the lawyer gives us a bill, there is a VAT element on it. Or when we go to an electronic shop and buy electronics, there is a VAT on it. That VAT is paid with your purchase, right? Or with your invoice. Once you are invoiced, you have to transfer the money to the seller. So that's one aspect of how you pay the VAT. So that's why I said that all providers of services and goods are VAT agents. So they are agents because they collect that tax from the final consumer on behalf of government. So that's how you and I, the ordinary citizen, pays the VAT to government. Then how does that VAT get from the seller to the government? This is through the filing process, because that agent is a corporate body, okay, or a duly established business doing business. That's why they are an outlet to sell things outlet to provide service. So they now have an obligation to file their returns every month by the 21st of every month, on or before the 21st of every month. The VAT you collected in February will be due between 1st and 21st of March. If you file outside of these dates, you have filed late. If you file after 21st of March, the VAT you collected all through February 1 to February 28 needs to be filed by the 21st of the next month. And it's during that filing, you go online, you access your online account on Tax Pro Max, which is our tax administration platform. Everyone, all filing has to be done on that platform. So when you go there, you declare through the process, you put your sales, you put your purchases, you put everything, all the information required. It's a very simple process, really. And then the system will calculate for you the net VAT that you are supposed to remit to the government. And then you make the payment through any of the payment gateways that is available on the platform or through your bank. Okay? Yes.
Your message to society.
So,
your message, your final word.
All right, okay. So, VAT, I just want the public to understand the importance of VAT. I'll give you some statistics. In 2016, our VAT was under 1 trillion. But that has increased steadily and contributed, to the total taxes collected by the federal government, thereby increasing the amount of money that is available to government for projects, different types of development projects to fund the budget. As we all know, it's no longer news that oil money is declining. We no longer have access to the kind of revenues we used to have as a country from oil. So we have no choice but to turn to taxes which are much more stable. And VAT is one of those taxes that can solve the problems of any nation, and especially us in Nigeria here. Right now we have a very huge external debt in order to fund the government budget. But VAT has the potential to be the tax that actually provides government with the money required for so many things. It pays to pay your VAT because most developed societies or countries in the world, that's what they use to fund their budget. Ours is one of the lowest in the world at 7.5%. We used to be 5%, and now we increased it in 2020 to 7.5%. The UK charges 20%, and you cannot escape it. South Africa, I think, charges, 18%? And figures indicate that, South Africa's VAT, even as they have 60 million, and their VAT is 8.8 trillion. That's more than the total taxes collected in this country until just this 2022 when we hit the 10 trillion. Before 2022, the highest we collected was 6.4 trillion in all taxes, including oil. Whereas South Africa, with a population of 60 million, is grossing 8.8 trillion in VAT alone. Our GDP is way bigger than that of South Africa. That means that we should be collecting much more VAT, even at our low rate of 7.5%, because our population is 4 times that of South Africa. Okay, so I just want to appeal to Nigerians. I know that one of the issues has always been, what is the impact of the taxes we are paying? How do we don't feel it? Do you understand? But I want Nigerians and the public to understand that we have schools, state schools. Not everyone can afford private university and private schools for their children. So we still have state schools. We have the army, we have the police, all these security apparatus. You may say that they are not working well, but they still have to be paid. They still have to be sustained. So government needs these resources and uses these resources to provide all these things. And we can only get from better when every citizen is doing their part and not saying, no, I'm going to hold on to my VAT until government is perfect. Do you understand? We will only get perfect when we have the right resources, when we have enough resources. So I want to appeal to the public, please, it pays to pay your tax. Don't shy away from that responsibility. Let's collectively build our nation, make Nigeria great again. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure. Yes.